Hi, good evening, everyone. Before starting today's session, just want to update you that we are going to record this session. Hope no issues to everyone. During the session, if you have any queries, please put it on the chat box. If you can mention the slide number, will be helpful for the presenter to answer it properly. As you are aware of, today is third Tuesday of the month, and on third Tuesday every month we are running a system engineering track, and today's topic is digital signal processing, mainly known as DSP. This technology is very important in a lot of applications, mainly in motor control, and nowadays motor control technology is very used in the EV segment. And so today we are going to deep dive on what the DSP is, and we will take a case study of the digital radio. As you are aware of, radio is an important gadget in your car and in the automotive segment. So today we have Dr. Vinod, who is our expert in this domain. He holds a PhD degree in the communication engineering from IISc Bangalore, and he is part of our team in NXP Bangalore. So welcome, Vinod. We have attendees from colleges, and you invested a lot of years in the university, so you are very much aware of the anxiety and what you can say, the student want to deep dive into the technology, as well as they are very much interested in the use case, which is very exciting, a digital radio. So over to you, Vinod. I don't want in between you and the students, and please go ahead, Vinod. Over to you.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks for the introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead, Vinod.
Yeah. So welcome to the talk. Good evening, all. So the content of the title of the talk today is digital signal processing, use case of digital radio. So what we'll be seeing today is how some of the modern DSP techniques and communication engineering techniques have enabled reinvention of the radio, and one of the aspects of the radio is this digital radio. So we will see how this DSP has enabled the digital radio. Yeah. So the content of the talk will be as follows. We'll first see what is digital radio. Then we will understand why do we actually need a digital radio, or what are the advantages of the digital radio. And then understand a little bit of how the digital radio is being adopted in India. So it's being adopted in many countries in the world. In some countries, it's in the advanced stage of adoption, and India, it has recently started. Then once we understand what is digital radio and why do we need digital radio, then we will understand what are the components of a digital radio system, and then how these components of a digital radio system are designed in order to meet certain performance criteria, which from a user perspective and from a broadcaster perspective. Now, if you look at a digital radio system, it has got it's actually a communication engineering system, and it holds techniques and technologies which are very similar to many other communication systems. So the flavor of the talk will be we'll be seeing a generic presentation of a communication engineering system, primarily a broadcast system, and then I will introduce how different components of the digital radio system are designed, with taking a particular example of a system called a digital radio module. We'll go to that. Now, broadcast radio is something which we are all familiar with. So you have a quick introduction to the broadcast radios. It doesn't require really a big introduction, but still, just to get the talk going, we will see what's a radio, broadcast radio. Radio, what we're going to talk about in this talk is actually a broadcast communication network. So what it means is there is a single transmitter and there are multiple receivers, and the content is same for all the receivers. So the station transmits a particular content, and anyone who is having a receiver can tune into that station and listen to the content from that station, and the content will be same for everyone. So this is called a broadcast network. Now in there are also other network topologies for radios, which is one of them is called single frequency network, which we will not be covering in this talk, but that's just good to know that it's not just a single transmitter will be transmitting to multiple receivers, but sometimes there will be two transmitters. They'll be transmitting the same content in a synchronized manner, but still if the content is same, and then different receivers can tune into the station and then get the listen to the content. So this is broadcast network is one kind of network. The other networks which we will be very familiar with is WLAN, which is wireless LAN, and then LTE, which is the 4G, 5G kind of networks. So these networks are all two-way networks, the WLAN or the 4G, 5G, where the receiver talks to the transmitter, the transmitter transmits to the receiver, and the receiver also talks to the transmitter. But the radio is actually a one-way network, so it's only a broadcast. There's no two-way communication. But in as far as the one-way communication of this network, it shares many aspects which are similar to the networks that we know, which is the Wi-Fi router that we use in our house, or the base stations that we see on the roads. Now, if you take a broadcast network, I mean broadcasting as such, there are different kinds of broadcasting. One is the public broadcasting, which is the most public broadcasting and commercial broadcasting. These are two familiar forms of broadcasting. So public broadcasting is what one can say is All India Radio's transmission. One of the recent more popular programs in public broadcasting is Mann Ki Baat by the Prime Minister. So that's one kind of broadcasting. It's present in every country, and in India it's done by All India Radio. Then there is commercial broadcasting, which is the broadcasting which happens in the FM band. Public broadcasting happens both in the FM band and the AM band, and the commercial broadcasting happens primarily in the FM band. Now, there is also one more kind of broadcasting which is called community radios. This is also different frequencies stations have been allocated to different communities. It could be an education institution or some kind of NGO who are running community radios in order to connect to the community. So the reason I'm talking about all this broadcasting, different kinds of broadcast network, is that there's still a lot of there is a lot of listeners to radio in public broadcasting or commercial broadcasting or community radios. Now, if you look at the current broadcasting, the technology aspect, when we say that, we have audio signals, and the audio signals are directly modulated to a carrier, and they get transmitted. So almost all broadcasting in India are analog transmissions. Recently, the digitalization of the transmission has started, but for all practical purposes, we can say that the radio broadcasting and radio reception is primarily analog. So that's the current state of broadcasting, radio broadcasting in India at least. But in Europe and US, there is the digitization of the broadcasting is a little advanced, and in India it's catching up. So what is different? What is this digital radio? How is it different from the analog radio? The digital radio here, when we say what is digital radio, the audio signals are actually digitized, compressed, and digitally modulated and put onto the air. So it's not that we are transmitting digital signals onto the air. What is being transmitted on the air is analog signals, but the source signals, the audio signals, are actually digitized. That's why you call this as a digital radio. In other words, the interface between the source, the transmission, and the source and the transmission is digital. Now, there are many advantages of this digital radio. Some of them you could have guessed very easily. So first, after all, it's a digital signal. So the audio signals are digitized, and these digital signals are being transmitted in a particular form. Now, there are certain other data which by its nature itself is digital, which is some of the text data that we see, or the images can be converted to a digital data. So in the context of a digital radio system, the audio signals can actually be multiplexed with these digital data. And so that's one of the major advantages of the digital radio system. So it's not, you will not just have the audio signal, but one might also be having a text data or an images along with the audio signals. This is pretty much like what we see in the television or Wi-Fi systems, the internet, everything. But what digital radio does is we are going to bring the similar technology in the radio context, in the broadcast radio, where along with the audio, one can also see a lot of text. So that's one of the major advantages of digital radio, because the signals are digitized, it can be multiplexed. Now, the other advantage of the digital radio is it works well in particular atmospheric conditions called fading. So this fading is a condition where, if let's say you are driving in a car and then the car is somewhere between the two, it's going in a hilly area, then the signal which is coming from the transmitter can get blocked by a hill, or it can get attenuated by many of the buildings, etc. So that's roughly speaking, that's the fading condition. We'll discuss all this in detail later. And digital radio works better than analog radio in the fading channel conditions. Now the other advantage, so these two advantages, the multiplexing of the digital data and the ability to work well in fading conditions, will in turn make it better audio experience or user experience for the receiver. There's one more advantage, which is it uses lesser transmission power compared to the analog radio for a similar distance. So from a broadcast perspective, it's somewhat a greener technology, you can see. Digital. So just to give you a feel for how a digital radio system will look like, this is one of the demonstrations which was done in New Delhi. This picture is taken from a demonstration which was done in New Delhi in March, a couple of 3 months back, where the car, one of the cars is actually picking up a signal from transmission from All India radio transmitter, which was converted to a digital radio transmitter. And as you can see here, along with the audio transmission, you can also see a lot of text here. So this text is not something which is coming from the car, which is actually being broadcasted here. So, and then when you have such a system, you can also have a good kind of a GUI where you can choose the station that you want. A lot of metadata can come along with this, which is helpful. So that's one of the nice aspects of the digital radio. I mean, recently the other aspect of digital radio is it's also being used for education, or it's being pitched for educational purposes in very remote locations where the internet penetration is pretty low, because if you can accompany the text along with the audio, and then if you can use a radio network in order to communicate, then it can also be used for education purposes. So, but this is one of the advantages of digital radio. Now, when we talk about digital radio is not just one standard, but there are many standards in digital radio. The main standards are the 4 standards which are listed here. One is called the Digital Audio Broadcast, it's the DAB. Then there is Digital Radio Mondial, another standard called DR. Then there's another standard, HD Radio, and the 4th standard, the most recent standard is China Digital Radio, which is CDR. So these standards are very similar, or similar in nature to many of the other standards that you would have encountered. For example, if you're buying a mobile phone, you would have checked what is the WLAN standard present in the mobile phone, 802.11n or 802.11 AC. So you know that the data rate is determined by these advanced standards. Or if it's an LTE, once again, you will look in your mobile phone that whether it's a 4G. I mean, currently we'll be looking whether it supports 3G or 4G, but in future, maybe it supports 5G. So digital radio standards are pretty similar to some of the standards that we know in our day-to-day life. So these standards, if you look at these standards, the digital DAB standard, it's very predominant in Europe. Europe uses the DAB as the digital radio standard. And in US, the most predominant standard is HD radio. So, and then, as the name suggests, the China digital radio is primarily being used in China. And in India, we have adopted a particular standard called Digital Radio Mondial, which is also being used in few other countries like Russia, or either being used or being considered in countries like Russia, South Africa, Australia, and things like and some countries. But in India, we have adopted a particular standard called Digital Radio Mondia. Now, as we go through this talk and then try to understand components of a digital radio system, I'll be using the example of the standard Digital Radio Mondia in order to illustrate the concepts. So even though the standards all share similar characteristics, the example standard that we'll be considering this talk is Digital Radio Mondia. So to give a quick overview of what is the Digital Radio Mondia standard, it is a digital broadcasting standard. When we say a digital broadcasting standard, it's actually a terrestrial standard because there's an antenna which is a transmitter and transmitting the antenna. It's not like satellite. So there are other standards like satellite radio and internet radio. So it's a terrestrial radio standard. Now, some of the frequencies which this DRM can operate are the LF frequency, which ranges from 30 to 300 kilohertz, and the MF frequency, which is 300 kilohertz to 3 megahertz, and the HF frequency 3 megahertz to 30 megahertz, and VHF frequency 30 megahertz to 300 megahertz. So typically, this MF frequency is called the medium wave. We call this as the AM band. Typically, this HF frequency is called the short wave band. So if you have been familiar with the radio, you would have seen our parents listening to shortwave radio, which is primarily in this 3 megahertz to 30 megahertz frequency. And then the VHF band is the FM band. For example, if you're tuning to a station 90.9 or 93.9, it falls between 30 and 300 megahertz. That's the VHF band. So the DRM as a standard can operate in any of these frequencies. And it gives a data rate which is 72 kilobits per second in until 30 megahertz, and from 30 to 300 megahertz, which is in the FM band, the data rate that it can support is 186 kbps. So, like I mentioned, India has started adopting digital radio in the medium wave and short wave bands. TROI has Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. TROI has already recommended Digital Radio Mondia, and All India Radio has adopted this, and there are already digital radio stations which are being present, which is on air. So some examples are here, which is one of the examples here is Bangalore station. So 621 kilohertz is assigned to the digital radio station. The content is the content so far is the same as the AM content, which is the FM code. For example, in this case, it's FM code. If you take Delhi, New Delhi, it's 1368 kilohertz, and it's FM Rainbow Delhi. So the same content which is being transmitted here. So this is in the medium wave band. In the FM band, still the technology is not decided. So there is it's ongoing. TROI has asked for a consultation, and then demos are going on. But in the medium wave band, DRM is already adopted. And there are also receivers which are available in the markets. It's primarily on the cars. So in the current estimate is there are more than 2 million cars on road which have digital radio receivers. So these are digital radio transmissions. So one needs a digital radio receiver in order to receive the transmission. So some of the models I've listed here, it's many of the Suzuki, Hyundai, MG, Toyota. So many of these models are all have, if you can tune into, actually there will be a mode called DRM, and one can go to the mode DRM and then listen to the digital radio transmission when it happens. When the All India Radio. Yeah, so that's a brief overview of digital radio. Now let's get a little bit deeper into the components of a digital radio system. Now, digital radio is actually a communication system, so it's like any other communication system, which is the same, which I mentioned. So in any communication engineering, the goal is very simple: carry the data bits produced by an application from one location to another location. So in this case, it could be a digital audio or a digital data, and the receiver would be in not a co-located location, but it will be somewhere. Let's say he or she is sitting somewhere far away, and the one wants to carry the data bits from the source or the content from the source to the receiver through a wireless medium. I mean, when we use a wireless medium to transmit this data, we call it as wireless communication. So that's the goal. How do you transmit this data from one location to another location? Now, what we are looking for is an engineering solution to this problem. We want to carry the data bits from one place to another place. It's not like we just carry physically, but we need an engineering solution. So the engineering solution here is one designs a transmitter at the transmission portion of the communication system, and then a receiver at the receive side of the communication system. So this transmitter and the receiver block, which is shown here, are the engineering blocks or the engineering systems. Now we need to design the systems which takes this data and converts into a form which can be transmitted over this wireless media. And in the receiver, it takes a signal which is coming from the wireless media, and then it converts into a form which can be fed to a display device or an audio device. So that's the goal. But let's say, and from the goal, if we come down as engineering requirements, let's say, what are the requirements here? So these information bits which are produced by the digital source, they need to be carried reliably to the receive side. So that's the first goal. We will understand what is meant by reliably slowly. But at this point, all you need to understand is that, okay, there is something called reliably, which means that the information bits can get corrupted during the transmission, and then we want to minimize the corruption. So we need to reproduce the information bits reliably in the receive side. That's the first one. The second is we need to transmit as much data as possible. So that's the data rate which you mentioned. So which is all you're familiar with, like we want a very high data rate. The higher the data rate, the audio fidelity will be very high. So you can transmit very high audio fidelity. Or you can transmit more data, the text and images. So if we expand the components of this system, let's say this portion here is the transmitter, and then this is the receiver. If you look at some of the blocks, some of the major blocks which are present in the system, there is from the digital source, there is a first block is called the source encoder. It takes the data bits and it actually does something called compression, and then gives it to another block. This takes the data bits and adds some error correcting capability to it. And there is another system called modulator, which is actually modulates the data bits to discrete waveform, and then there is an RF system which converts this waveform to an analog waveform which can be put onto the air. In the receiver, the whole system is reversed. One picks up the signal from the air and then convert it into a form which is in the data bits, some bits, and then we do a reverse of this channel encoding, which is channel decoding. And here compression happens, and here the decompression happens, and then this is given to the digital sync, which could be a display device, for example, or an amplifier. So this is the general block diagram of a communication system, which holds true for digital radio. Now we said, okay, there are some requirements for us to communicate, which is transmit the bits as reliably as possible and transmit as much data as possible. But in engineering, typically, whenever you have a requirement, there also it's not easy to achieve the requirement because there are also constraints which the nature poses. Which the nature poses, by design we may have to have certain constraints. So the first constraint that we'll be talking about is that it's called the bandwidth. So the bandwidth is there is only a certain portion of the spectrum which is allocated to different communication applications. For example, in the example listed here, if you take the WLAN, which is then the WLAN can operate in either 2.4 gig or in 5 gig. So the bandwidth allocated for a particular WLAN connection is either 20 megahertz, 40 megahertz, or 80 megahertz. So that's the bandwidth which is allocated to that application. Now, similarly, if you take 4G LTE, one example bandwidth can be allocated is 20 megahertz. And same way in the digital radio, if you take DRM, in a medium wave, the max bandwidth can be allocated as 18 kilohertz or 20 kilohertz. And in the FM band, it could be 100 kilohertz. So that's the first constraint is your bandwidth constraint. The second major constraint in the communication system is what you transmit is actually not what you receive. The received signal is always corrupted because due to various factors which are happening in the environment and your device. So this is one of the major problems in communication. If this problem is not there, communication is very easy. In this engineering system, it's nothing. If it's what you receive is the same as what you transmit, at least the signal, then it's all pretty easy. But whereas in reality, it's not. the received signal is actually corrupted by noise. The noise could be which is the noise which is added to your device, or the atmospheric noise where the noise is picked up in the air. And then we saw that there is a system, there's an RF system here. And the RF circuit also acts at another impairments, which is called carrier frequency offset or sampling frequency offset. We'll come to all of this. And then there is certain other problems which are imposed by the environment, which is the fading, which I talked about earlier. So when you transmit a signal, it doesn't just directly come through line of sight, but it also hits other reflectors and comes to the receiver. So these multiple reflections which happens in the environment leads to a situation called fading. So and then let's say there are multiple transmitters and there could be interference from neighboring transmission. For example, there is particular transmission which is going on 90.9 megahertz, and then there may be another transmission or another channel which is present on 91 megahertz. So these two are very close to each other, so and then they can interfere with one another. So these are some of the constraints. So the first constraint that we talked about is the bandwidth. The next constraint is all the impairments which happens either in the device or in the atmosphere. So going back to the communication system, we have certain requirements and there are certain constraints. So we need to design our system in order to satisfy those requirements. And then it has to perform well in spite of all these constraints. So that's the goal of a communication system. So now when we design the system, we do not design all at one go, but we do something called a layering. So it's creation of, this is something you will encounter often in anyone's engineering career, which is called abstractions. So we cannot design the entire system at one go. The system has to be abstracted in will typically be abstracted in different layers, and different layers will be designed and deployed by different teams or different engineering teams. Either they may be geographically distributed, but that enables the whole engineering community to work on such a development and a deployment of such a system together. So if you take our communication system here, what we can think of is what is being the first block here, the source encoder, the transmitter, and the source decoder, the receiver, can be thought of as an application layer. So what it does is it does compression. So the application layer, it does compression. The compression in our situation is very similar to what you see in, for example, if you had opened your PDF, you would have seen a Lempel-Ziv compression, or many other places you would have heard compression. But the compression which happens in the digital radio is slightly different, taking into constraints of digital radio system. The next layer is called the physical layer, or the baseband, as we would call it. So this layer, it takes the bits and converts into a waveform, which is a discrete waveform. So in the transmitter, it converts it into a discrete waveform. In the receiver, it takes a discrete waveform and converts back to bits. So that's what the second layer does. It's called the physical layer, or the baseband. Now third, there is another system called RF system. It takes this discrete samples and then converts it into a waveform which can actually be transmitted on the air. And in the receiver, the RF system picks the waveform which is present in the air and converts it into a discrete set of samples, which can then be processed by the baseband or to extract the bits out of it. So this is how a typical communication system will be layered. I mean, there are more granular layerings which are present in a communication system, but in the context of digital radio system, these are the major layers. Now, so having a different view on this, so there is the content, and it goes through the application layer, this layer, and then through the physical layer. I've also included the RF into this, and then there's a wireless medium. Now, typically in other communication systems, like for example, if you take a WLAN, and there'll be another layer which will be sitting between the application layer and physical layer. It's called the MAC layer, because there are multiple devices will be trying to contend for the channel, not to access the router. You know that you can connect your 2 laptops and 1 mobile phone to a system, and they all contend for the channel. But such a system is not there in the digital radio, because digital radio is a broadcast system. So there is some small link layer there, but we will not worry about that. So these are the major layers. Now, what we'll do in this, in the further course of this talk is, we will understand the different technologies or techniques which go into these layers. So, and keeping in mind what are the constraints of the communication system, and what are the goals of the communication system. So to summarize, what the application layer does is it does compression at the transmitter, and it does decompression of the receiver. In the physical layer, the bits are converted to the discrete waveform of the transmitter, and then at the receiver, the discrete waveform is converted back to the bits. Now there are two blocks which does this. One is the channel encoder and channel decoder, and modulator and demodulator. And the block which finally the block which has the interface to the environment is the RF system, which is it takes the discrete waveform and converts into analog waveform and vice versa. So some of the components which will be present in the RF system are the mixers and the ADC mixers or ADCs. You can think of it as a sampler and a DAC, digital control. Now we saw what are the constraints of a communication system, what are the requirements, and also we saw what is the layering in a communication system. Now we have certain performance requirements. Initially I said we want to transmit the bits as reliably as possible, and then we want to transmit as much data as possible. So these constraints can actually be translated to or mapped to different layers. An example I've given here is, so once again, like we do not design the whole system together, similarly the whole performance measures also will be done across layers. So for example, one of the performance measures is the audio frame error rate or the bit error rate. So this performance measure is considered at the interface between the application layer and the physical layer, or at the end of the physical layer. So we want the bit error rate or the audio frame error rate to be low. So that's what we mean by transmitting reliably. If you're transmitting bits in the receiver, we want to receive the bits exactly. And if some of the bits are corrected, then we call it as an error. And how many bits are in error for a certain number of transmitted bits, that's the bit error rate. The other, for example, another performance measure could be something called a time to audio. Yeah, so time to audio is measured at an application layer, where the receiver is the user is actually clicking on the is starting the transmission, and he or she, the amount of time the person takes in order to hear the audio after switching on the transmission is called the time to audio. So that's something which is measured at the application layer. So these are different performance measurements, and we have divided the performance measurements also into map to different layers. So we'll keep coming back to this diagram often, because this is the main diagram which is in play here. So we have these layers, and then the performance also is distributed across these layers. The bit error rate is at this layer, and the time to audio is at this layer. Now, what one can think of is, so you can think of this, each layer needs to know, I mean, it assumes that the other layer does the job. For example, if you take the application layer, it assumes that the physical layer is trying to give it present to the application layer a channel which is an error-free channel. That's what the application layer will assume. So it thinks that there is a bit pipe which is being provided from the from this place to this place, even though the bits are going through a lot of blocks here, and then it may get corrupted during the transmission, and then we may make error here. The assumption here is that after all this channel encoding and decoding and all of these systems, what is being presented to this application layer is a bit pipe which is error-free, and that bit pipe will be a finite width. Now that's where the job of the application layer or the encoding decoding layer comes into the picture here, source encoding, source decoding. Because the multiple sources are there, which is audio, data, images, everything has to be transmitted to this through this pipe, and there's a lot of data, and they need to be multiplexed and transmitted this pipe. What will help us is compression. So there are two kinds of compression techniques which are used in digital radio standards, in primarily in DRM. One is AAC and another is XHAAC. So these are, if you are very familiar with some of the compression techniques, which is called Huffman coding, which is what you would have studied in your courses. So these are also advanced versions of such Huffman coding. So some kind of lossy compression, you can see. So that's the job of a compression decompression layer. You have a finite bit pipe, and then you want to transmit a lot of data through the bit pipe. So compress the data, transmit it, and in the receiver, once again decompress it and take it. So you can use the bit pipe very efficiently. The second, if you come to the next layer, which is the physical layer. Now imagine, so that's done. So source encoding, decoding. What it does is that it looks at the below layers as a finite bit pipe. So how does the subsequent layers present a finite bit pipe, which is an error-free bit pipe, to the application layer? So it does by certain techniques, which is in the transmitter, what we saw as baseband. It maps the bits to a sequence of numbers. And then there is a digital to analog converter. It converts this discrete signal to an analog signal of required bandwidth. And the RF system, typically this DAC is portion of this RF system. RF system shifts the signal to the desired carrier frequency. So what it means here is we generate the signal at a baseband or at a particular bandwidth at a baseband and then shift it to different frequencies. It could be 612 kilohertz, or in the FM band, it could be 90.9, 91.9, whichever you could. And the receiver, the RF system can down convert the signal back to the baseband, and the ADC, which is the sampler, which takes this analog signal, samples the signal and converts it into the discrete samples and provides it to the baseband, and it extracts the bits from the received samples. So this is what the physical layer and the RF layer does in order to provide bit pipe to the application layer, so that the application layer can transmit their bits to this pipe. Now it has to do this in such a form, in such a way that the errors are less during this process. Now, as we saw that it's not that easy to do this, because there are a lot of impairments which are coming into play here. The impairments that we saw were the noise, then RF impairments, then fading, then interference from neighboring transmission. What we will do now is we will take these impairments one by one and see how the different blocks in the transceiver, the transmitter and the receiver, are designed in order to handle all these impairments. Now these blocks, how these blocks are designed, it's common to, like I once again to emphasize, it's common to other communication standards as well. But the particular design is very peculiar to the digital radio here, because it depends on the kind of noise that we see, or the noise power that we see, and then the frequencies in which this noise happens, and the kind of fading that we see in the VHF band and the HS band. So the digital radio system has the different components are designed in such a manner that the impairments which are seen in radio communication systems are handled efficiently. So the first impairment, or the most important impairment here, is the noise. The noise is actually introduced. There are two kinds of noises as far as this talk is concerned. One is the thermal noise. The thermal noise is actually introduced by the amplifier and the receiver. So when you have a receiver, that is in the RF system, you have something called the amplifier, which is called a low noise amplifier, for example. And that amplifier is a physical device which will definitely produce some noise in typical temperatures. Now, then there is also an atmospheric noise. This is the noise which the signal picks up during its transmission, which is particularly relevant at low frequencies, and hence it becomes relevant for the digital radio in the AM band. And one of the characteristics of the noise is how does the thermal noise affects the entire bandwidth of the system. So because there is a noise in the transmission, the signal is corrupted by the noise. It causes errors in the decoded bits. So that's the problem posed by this noise. So we know that the noise actually creates a problem. So now once again, in engineering system, if there is a constraint or if something creates us a problem, we need to know how much of it is a problem. I mean, how do we quantify the problem? So in this case, the problem is noise. So how do we quantify it? And how do we measure the impact of the noise? That's a question which we ask. So the parameter which is typically used to understand the impact of the noise or to measure the impact of the noise is mostly SNR. It's the ratio of the received signal power to the total noise power in the system. This is the only slide you'll have a little bit of math, but there's nothing to be feared here. It's a very simple math here. Even if you do not understand the numbers here, it's okay, but at least one can get the crux here as I go through this slide. So the transmitter transmits the signal, and as the signal traverses through the medium, if the receiver is farther from the transmitter, then the received signal power will be lesser. So the signal keeps getting attenuated as it moves in the environment. So, and once it receives the if the receiver is farther away, then the received signal power will be even lesser. An example here is, for example, one of the examples here is we are given is in the All India radio station, which was in one of the measurements that we are doing, it was transmitting at 8 kilowatts. Now that is, if you convert into dB scale, it's 70 dB. And if the same signal was picked at Manyata Tech Park, which is where NXP is present in Bangalore, due to the path loss, the path loss could be around 150 dB. So, which means the signal is heavily attenuated here, and the received signal power will only be minus 80 dB. So it is 70 minus 150, which is minus 80 dB. And let's say for an example, this is not a real example, but let's say for a toy example here, the noise power at the baseband is minus 90 dB. What it shows is that the received signal power is actually only 10 dB above the noise floor here. So the noise is minus 90 dBm, received signal power is minus 80 dBm. So the received signal power is slightly above the noise here. So the SNR in this example is 10 dB. Now for this SNR, in one of the examples, if there is a very simplistic system, one can say that 1 in 30 bits will be corrupted. So what it means is that for this, for this transmission and for this reception, if you don't do anything much if you are not designing the transmitter and receiver intelligently, then 1 in 30 bits will be an error, which is very high. 1 in 30 bits is an error. It will be, if you imagine you're transmitting a text and then they are converted to a bits, and 1 in 30 bits are an error, then it's really catastrophic, I would say. Now, another characteristic or the relationship between the probability of error and the SNR is this: as the SNR increases, the probability of error decreases. Now, an example is given here. At 8 dB SNR, it could be 1 in 15 bits, and at 12 dB SNR, it could be 1 in 100 bits. But even 1 in 100 bits is still high. If you want transmitting audio and you want to decode the audio. So as SNR increases, the probability of error decreases, but we don't want to keep on increasing the SNR. So SNR can either increase by increasing the transmission power, which we do not want to do, or also by some other techniques which we'll not discuss here. But so for a given transmission power, how do you receive the signal in the farthest place? So that's our goal. Now, one of the techniques which is used in the communication engineering, that's where this channel encoder and channel decoder comes into the picture. So be it. Let's say the environment adds noise, and because of which we make an error at this output of this modulator and demodulator. But let's have two blocks, which is channel encoder and channel decoder. Channel encoder adds some capability for the errors to be corrected, even though the errors are made, and channel decoder corrects that error. Yeah, a very simple example is this. You take a source bits and then you add some parity bits to it. For example, let's say the bits are 000 or 001, and then you add a parity bit to it. Let's say sum of all these bits to be so sum of all the source bits, and that's the parity bit. And we can use these parity bits to detect and correct errors depending on the number of parity bits. It's a very simple technique, but what happens is there is a reduction in the data rate because you also need to spend some resources for transmission of this transmitting these parity bits. So if you want to correct the errors using such simple methods, then one has to sacrifice the data rates. So that's what we say, that it's called a trade-off. The word trade-off is once again a very important name in engineering, or it keeps suffering. Because if you want to have good reliability, then you have to sacrifice rate. If you want to have a good rate, then you have to sacrifice reliability. So is there a trade-off between that? At least for this example, there's a trade-off here. Because if you want a very reliable system, you want to add more. We want to add more parity bits. The more the parity bits are added, it consumes time. Therefore, the data rate comes down. So that's having more of one is causing less of the other. Therefore, we say it's a trade-off. Now, typically, originally, it was thought that if in such a communication system there is such a trade-off, but there is this famous researcher called Claude Shannon. What he said, it is possible to design a communication system such that one can have the errors as low as possible, but still without reducing the data rates, as long as the data rate is below a certain number. And that number is called the capacity of the channel. So as long as the data rate is below a certain number, which is called the capacitor channel, then one can design your transmitter and receiver in such a manner that any amount of error can be corrected. So that's a very famous theorem from Shannon, which actually revolutionized the design and deployment of communication system. And since this theorem came actually in late 1940s or in the early 1940, 1950, and since then there have been attempts by many of the researchers from academia, industry, now to design communication error correcting encoders and decoders, which can do a good job in correcting these errors. And these designs have been used in various standards, including including the digital radio standard. So one of the very earliest error correcting code which was invented is called convolution codes, which was invented by Peter Elias, which has been used in 2G, 3G, and Wi-Fi. That's one of the very famous codes. The other famous code is Reed-Solomon code, which has got a different kind of capability. It's called a burst error correction capability, which means if a bunch of bits are in error, this code has the ability to correct that. So it's one of the examples that you can think of is it's in a CD player. Let's say if you make a scratch on the CD player, a bunch of bits will get corrected, but even then you can recover it because earlier they were all being protected by Reed-Solomon codes. The other famous code, which was called turbo codes, which was used in 4G, which is used in 4G. And then another code which is very famous, which is LDPC code, which is used in Wi-Fi and another digital radio system, CDR. And then the example digital radio system that we are talking about here is DRM. In DRM, we use a code called multi-level codes. So multi-level codes is also a code which is built on the layers of other codes. So in this particular case, in DRM, it is built on the convolution codes. So there are many convolution codes which are formed as layers, and it actually gives a better error correction capability. And that's one of the codes which is used in DRM, which is the digital radio model system. The other recent code which has been very famous code is called Polar code, which was invented by Ethel Ariken, and it was invented in 2009, which has recently been adopted in 5G. So these are different kinds of error correcting codes which are used in a communication system, and in a digital radio system, once again, the different codes are being used. If you see here, the DRM system, one uses multi-level codes and also Reed-Solomon codes. Reed-Solomon codes for data encoding and decoding, but the multi-level codes for the stream which is to encode and decode compressed audio. Now, yeah, so if you go a little bit into the multi-level codes, I will not go too detailed here. The multi-level codes used in the digital radio module system is called, there are multiple layers. So here I see here that there are two layers here, just shown here. And one of the different layers use different code rates. So what it means is, for example, the code rate of 1/6 has a better error correction capability of code rate of 1/2, and these two codes are combined in a particular form in order to provide a better error correcting encode. Yeah, so that's the first component, very important component of a digital radio system, which is an error correcting code and an error correcting code which helps us to correct the errors. The other system, the other components of the communication system that you saw was an RF system. The RF system, as we saw, it's required to convert the signal from a discrete waveform to an analog waveform and put it onto the air. And the receiver, the analog waveform has to be converted back to a discrete waveform. It does it through an ADC, and some mixers are present in the chain. But as an RF does this, it also introduces certain impairments. Some of the impairments are here. One is called the carrier frequency offset. So, for example, if you want to transmit a signal and then shift it to some other frequency, it's called the upconversion at the transmitter. One has to have an oscillator which generates a sinusoid. Now, if you think that if you have designed an oscillator which is generating a sine wave of 1 megahertz, but a manufactured oscillator in reality may not be generating a 1 megahertz sine wave, maybe it's generating 1.001 megahertz. So it's slightly different. And similarly, it could be an ADC. If you think that you have designed an ADC, we think that it's designed an ADC to sample at a particular data rates, maybe it's sampling at some other data rates. For example, 1 mega, if you think that we have an ADC which is sampling at 1 megasamples per second, that's what we've designed. But the actual ADC may be sampling at 1.01 over 1 megasamples per second. So these components which are in the ARP system can behave a little differently from the design value. So what's happened in the receiver is that we actually estimate how much of this it's design, how much it's deviating from the design value, and then we correct it. So that's how we take care of the RF impairments. So the way one takes care of the noise is through error correcting encoders and decoders. And the way one takes care of the RF impairments is there are techniques to measure this and then correct them. Then the third major component, major impairment, I would say, which makes the received signal different from the transmit signal, is called the fading. So what's fading? Fading is a phenomenon which happens during the transmission of the system in the wireless channel. So let's say there is a transmitter and there's a receiver. A signal is being transmitted from the transmitter. Now, this transmission system, let's say the signal, transmit signal here, it hits the object and comes back to the receiver, let's say. There is one is the line of sight path here, and in another case, it hits a wall here and comes back. Maybe it hits a building and comes back. Now, these different signals have traversed different path lengths, as you can see in this figure. So this traverses the least path length. This traverses a little more higher path length. So which means that the same signal which is transmitted will arrive at the receiver at different time intervals. So we will receive the transmit signal here, and a little later we will receive the reflected signal here, and maybe a little later we will receive another reflected signal here. So this actually leads to a situation called multi-path fading. So the same signal keeps coming in a delayed version. So the next signal that you transmit from the transmitter may interfere with this, might interfere with this. So this is one form of problem which happens in the atmosphere. Now, the other problem which can happen during this transmission is called Doppler shift. So if we are thinking that we are transmitting at a frequency f, a signal, let's say the signal is at a frequency f, what we actually may not be receiving a signal at the same frequency f if the receiver is moving actually, or even if the environment. So this is something we have studied in high school. If you're transmitting a signal at frequency f, then what we receive is a frequency which is plus or minus fe by c. So let's say someone transmits a sinusoidal tone here. If we are moving away from the transmitter, you will hear a tone of a different frequency. If you're moving nearer to the transmitter, you will hear a tone of different frequency. It will not be the same frequency as what is transmitted. So this is called the Doppler shift. The transmitted frequency f, but you receive some other frequency. So there are these two different kinds of issues which can happen during the transmission in the wireless medium. One is the multipath fading, and the other is Doppler shift. So now the way the multipath fading happens and where this Doppler shift happens, or the amount of Doppler shift, the amount of fade, all this depends upon the band. So in the VHF band or in the FM band, it may be different. In the AM band, it may be different, or in the Wi-Fi band, which is 2.4 gigahertz band, the phenomenon may be very, very different from another band which is in the 800 megahertz in the LTE band. Similarly, in the digital radio band, one example I've taken in the VHF band. And once again, it also depends on the environment, because the environment also determines the amount of reflectors, the kind of reflectors, etc. So some of the common channel profiles we call is urban channel, rural channel, hilly terrain channel. So all it says is that in urban channel, the multipath is different from maybe a hilly terrain channel, and so the multipath can vary from one channel. An example channel profile is this. For example, if you are transmitting in an urban channel profile in one of the particular VHF band, a signal can come in different reflected paths. The first signal can come at, let's say if you take this as a reference, it's 0 microsecond, which is at a power of minus 2 dB. And the second reflected signal will come a little 0.2 microsecond later, maybe with some other power. Then the same signal may come in a third reflected path with and another 0.3 delay here, 0.5 microsecond here, so 0.3 microsecond delay with respect to the second path with some other power. So it can keep coming in multiple reflected, keep coming as multiple reflected signals, and the receiver has to work hard in order to extract a signal if such kind of issue happens. Now, what's the solution for this? One of the major solutions which was being considered is called orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. It's called OFDM. So OFDM is a system which helps us to combat some of the problems which we encounter during the transmission of the signal from the transmit receiver in a wireless channel. So I will not go too detailed OFDM. All I will say that OFDM is some modulation scheme which helps us, which is very robust to multi-path fading and Doppler spread. Now this OFDM is once again is used in many digital, almost all digital radio standards use this OFDM, whether it is DAB, DRM, and also other standards like LTE, Wi-Fi. Everyone uses here OFDM. So to give a very quick picture on it, it's some kind of low complexity method to handle the phenomenon which I mentioned is called intersymbol interference. The intersymbol interference is nothing but the same signal coming in a delayed manner causing some interference in the receiver. So that's the OFDM. I mean, it handles this situation. So in DRM, OFDM is being used in order to handle this situation. Now, OFDM as such, as a technique, it has got certain parameters, which one of the parameters is called carrier spacing, the other is called God interval, and there are many modes in the DRM system which can use which has different values for these parameters. So for example, one of the modes which is called mode E, which is used in the FM band, the God interval is 0.25 millisecond and the carrier spacing is 444 hertz, 0.44 hertz. Yeah, I slightly jumped steps here, but one can understand here is that OFDM has certain parameters which are variable parameters, and those parameters are set for different modes set different values for different modes. Now, why do we have different modes? Because these modes can be used for different kinds of environmental conditions. For example, if the channel is such that the delay spread is very high, what it means is the reflected signals keep coming for long amounts of time, or there is a huge amount of delay spread, then a mode B is very much suited for such a situation. Now, similarly, if there is a very highly delay spread and Doppler spread, which means that for Doppler spread happens, which is the Doppler shift I mentioned, where if you're traveling very fast with your receiver, then there's a huge amount of Doppler shift. That's I mentioned about this. If you're transmitting a frequency f, what we receive is a frequency fv by c, so it's proportional to the velocity. If you're traveling at a very fast speed, the car, let's say the receiver is sitting in a car and then you're driving the car very fast, then there is a huge amount of Doppler shift. So in such situations, for example, in the AM band, we can use mode D. You want to support very high data automobile speeds. So different modes can be used. So the broadcaster can choose one of these modes, and based on this mode, the OFDM parameters will get set. So we saw three parameters, three problems. One first is noise. The noise is handled through an error correcting encoder and a decoder. The second is an RF impairments, which is introduced by an RF system. That's handled by estimating these impairments and correcting them. The third is the fading, which happens in the environment, and that's handled by a good modulator demodulator design, which is the OFDM which we discussed here. And then the fourth problem which happens in wireless transmission is called interference. Interference is when there are two kinds of interference. One is the in-band interference, where the interference is actually present inside the band of interest. So you have a signal of certain bandwidth, and then the interference actually affects that band. So this is some kind of interference which is difficult to compensate. So what we saw is that a measure of the performance of systems SNR, the SNR actually becomes SINR here. From signal to noise ratio, it becomes signal to interference noise ratio. And with a certain level of interference, this SINR is higher than the SNR. So this can create issues. It's somewhat difficult to handle this situation. The other is out of band interference, where if you're transmitting a signal, then there is also neighboring transmissions are going on. And now this can leak into the transmission of interest. So it can either be handled by proper frequency planning, or at the receiver, you can use a filter to filter it shortly. So that's the kind of techniques on the filtering is one technique which you can handle with out of band interference. Yeah, so overall what we saw is a digital radio system as a digital communication system here, where we have certain content, and then the content has to be transmitted to the receiver. And we had divided the communication system as two layers, application layer and the physical layer. The goal of the physical layer is to present a bit pipe which is an error-free to the application layer. And once a error-free pipe is being presented, the application layer will try to transmit as much data bits as possible in the bit pipe. And the way it does it is through compression of the transmitter and through decompression of the receiver. So let's say, how does the physical layer does its job? Its job is to present a error-free bit pipe to this, but it's not easy. Its job is difficult because errors do happen, and sometimes it could be very severe. Now, the kind of errors can happen due to many reasons. One is the major cause is noise here, and also to the other thing is RF impairments, fading, then the interference. Now, there's different ways in which errors can happen, and different techniques, signal processing and communication techniques are used in the physical layer to handle these errors. Errors are handled by designing a good error correcting code and decoder, which we saw in the DRM, which is called a multi-level code. And then the fading is handled by designing a good modulator and demodulator so that it's easy to demodulate it. You can demodulate even in the presence of fading. So the example system that we saw here is called the OFDM system, which is used in the digital radio module system. And the third problem that we saw was RF impairments. This is the systems that you design, whether you're designing oscillator or an ADC, they will not behave in exactly the same way it was designed. The manufactured system will be different from the design system. So the way it is handled is there are some techniques, estimation techniques, which are used in order to determine how much a particular device is deviating from its design value, even and then use that to offset or correct the. Now, the fourth one is what we saw as the interference. Interference is something it can either happen in band or out of band. Now, the out of band interference can be handled by good filtering or proper frequency planning. In band interference is difficult to handle, but still there are some techniques which can handle that. So these are different techniques used in the physical layer in order to ensure that the error is as minimal as possible so that it can present a finite bit pipe to the application layer. And the application layer is where compression and decompression happens, and then the content gets displayed at the receiver in a good quality. So far we saw this digital radio system as a communication system, which is, and then the different components of the system, how are they designed in order with the constraints. We had a goal, we want to transmit the bits reliably and transmit a very high data rate, and we had a lot of constraints, and the system was designed in such a manner that these goals are met in spite of all these constraints. Now, but that's the design of a system in a very generic terms, but if you take a particular radio receiver or a transmitter, and there are a lot of other implementation aspects which come into the play, especially if you are working on an engineering system, so many implementation aspects will come into the picture. Now, a very, very brief overview of implementation aspects is, so in this case, the service providers actually implement the transmitters, and digital radio receivers today are available in as desktop radios, as dongles, or some mobile applications. So these are some other places where digital radio receivers are available. Now the challenges involved in the design of the receivers design of the communication system on the receive side are different from the design of the communication system on the transmit side. I mean, we saw some of the design aspects, but practical design aspects are much more than what I listed here. And the challenges are different in this and this, in the receiver and the transmitter. Now, once again, the challenges are different for the receiver design in automobiles, desktop radios, dongles, and mobile applications. For example, if someone is designing a receiver for a mobile system in automobiles, then one needs to design taking into account the huge Doppler shifts. That may not be a problem in a desktop radio. So these are some of the aspects that will come into play. Now, the other aspect is how this system is implemented. It could either be implemented as an ASIC solution, which is like a hardware solution, or a partially ASIC and then a software-defined radio. And many of the systems, most of the systems present in automobile are actually defined as software-defined radio, which means that this whole communication system is actually nothing but a software. Or a major portion of this communication system is a software. So it's a software which will get, which is running in a car system or in a desktop radio. And one of the advantages of implementing this as a software-defined radio is that it allows firmware updates, so you can keep updating it. So that's the and quick overview of the implementation aspects in digital radio system. So the final summary is this: we discussed what is a digital radio. First, we saw what is a digital radio. Digital radio is we digitize the audio signals and then multiplex it with digital data and then transmit it, so that it enables the text and images along with audio signals. And then another important aspect of digital radio is that it enables high fidelity transmissions. So the audio quality will be good because it has got a lot of components, that the components of the system have been designed in order to handle many of the impairments which can happen in the atmosphere. So, and how these components are designed, it varies from standard to standard a little bit. It varies from DAB to DRM to HDRI to CDR. We saw that direct correcting codes used in DAB are different from DRM and they're different from CDR. And but another example is if you take the OFDM as a modulation component, the OFDM as such is same, but then the parameters of the OFDM are different from standard to standard because their operating conditions are different, and or the trade-offs are being different. So that's and there are many standards here. We took DRM as an example standard. Now we also saw like how do we design the system at a very top level. So if you want to design such a radio system, we cannot design it at one go. We will look at the radio system and then abstract it as different layers, and these layers can be designed independently. And the different layers have different jobs to do, or different requirements, and if along with the requirements there are also constraints in the system. So these requirements have to be satisfied subject to these constraints, like in any engineering system. And the system parameters are being chosen such that one can satisfy this constraint in an optimal manner in the radio channel conditions. Now so that's the difference between this one communication system to another communication system. For example, a digital radio system is different from a Wi-Fi system, is that both are communication systems, but the parameters or the parameters of the different components in the system are chosen in order so that that system operates in its own conditions well. The Wi-Fi system condition is very different because, for example, in Wi-Fi condition, if the Wi-Fi router is used in an office space or in home, the kind of channel model that you see or the kind of fading that one will encounter will be different from a system which is operating in a very high speed abnormal system, and then the transmitter is present in a high mast. So the conditions are different. Because the conditions are different, the system parameters are chosen differently. And we saw that the parameters of this system in the particular example, which is digital radio module, the system parameters are chosen such that the performance is optimized in the radio channel conditions, which is what we saw: higher delay spread, higher Doppler spread, etc. Yeah, so that's the summary of a complete system. So now I'll open up the top 20 questions.
Yeah, thank you, Vinod. I can say that good revision of the communication systems which we learned in the colleges, and good, a good amount of details where our students or the attendees can understand the different technologies. And you mentioned a lot of vehicles which is manufactured in India are having these technologies, so it's a proud moment for all of us. And yeah, hopefully we'll do more business, not just in India but the worldwide automotive market. Great innovation by you and your team, and NXP will proud of that. I think no queries from our attendees, if I'm not wrong. No hand raised. Maybe Rahul, please confirm any hand raised.
No, Manish.
Okay.
And not question in any chat box.
Okay. Any query? Otherwise, we'll close today's session. Any last query? Okay, I think you described in a very well mannered and in a very, the way where students can understand. So things are very clear. If anyone is having any queries, they can contact us on our support email. So thanks, Vinod, for all your effort and your time. Thank you. And thank you all the attendees. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Vinod, you are saying something?
No, thanks for organizing this, and also thanks for people who attended this.
Thank you, Vinod. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Good.